raising the vehicle registration fee. And for those about half of you that raised your hand that moved here from another state, we're proud to pay $65 for a vehicle. I talked to my sister in Colorado, has a car is about almost 10 years old. She pays about $400.
Let me also say congestion.
No.
Congestion, you mentioned congestion in addition to the port thing. Once we get our maintenance and preservation back up to a level where it should be in the right safety projects, congestion can be congestion in a corridor like I-35 or I-20. It can also be congestion in town at 5 o'clock traffic, which in Dallas it starts at 2 and ends at about 7. We're going to have to close that gap on the funding gap. We're going to have to go in next session with some ideas. What I have filed for the last 3 years is a constitutional amendment to take a portion of the vehicle sales tax you currently pay on your vehicle and constitutionally dedicate it to the roads and bridges that vehicles depend upon.
I love it.
Tie the two together. Right now, you buy a new car or truck, you pay several $1,000s in taxes. It goes into the general fund and it's used for all these social programs. People in my district, I'm in L-Type district, my district starts immediately south of L-Type, goes all the way down to the coast. They want the tax as close to the service that tax generates. And so what I want to give y'all the opportunity to vote to do that. So I'm proposing that we tie the two together. Without the car, you don't need the road. Without the road, you don't need the car. I will be filing that constitutional amendment again in November. And I've done it for the last 3 years. But this time, I think I've educated more and more people. So we're building some momentum on that. That would close the gap.
And what potentially might that raise?
The vehicle sales tax is about $4 billion per year. If we took half of it,
Take all of it.
constitutionally dedicated to the road, then we would not put too much of a bite in the budget.
Take all of it.
But that would just about close the gap.
Senator, you said,
And it will, the problem with the fuel tax is that it doesn't adjust for inflation and it doesn't adjust for fuel efficiency. If you were trying to identify the perfect transportation revenue source, you would say it adjusts for inflation. It is transportation related. Sales tax is, it does both of those. It is not dependent on the fuel source. I don't care if you're driving a Tesla all electric, or you're driving a natural gas or a diesel or whatever, you're going to pay sales tax on it. So it does that. And it, anyway, it would get you there. It's a larger number. And it's actually a fairly steady number, predictable.
before you say, I want to mention, you reminded one thing that I think we want to make sure we mention on Prop 1. There is no tax increase. This is using revenues that come in, and it cannot be used on toll roads, so it goes back straight into Fund 6.
My question has to do with the revenue going into the rainy day fund. And I know this is not likely in the near future, but we have, right now we've got quite a bit coming into there, and we take half of it for the transportation. What will happen down the road if that revenue stream starts to dry up, and then we get less and less going to transportation?
I think that we discussed that during the session. You can also have a catastrophe, kind of like 2007, 2008, and we need to be able to shut off that spigot to transportation, and there's a provision in that bill. And the way we did it was we said, okay, the rainy day fund has a cap that kind of grows. It's about 10% of whatever the general revenues were from the year before. So it slowly grows as the state grows. It doesn't have a floor. And the reason we've always said in the past you don't need a floor is because 2/3 of the members have to vote to take a dime out. Okay, so when that issue came up, and it came up very early in our different meetings, and a lot of us got together and wrestled and said, what should that floor sufficient balance be? We're not going to vote to take it down to there, but if it ever reaches this level. And so the first time I passed it out of the Senate in first special, we just said the cap was $12 billion at the time. So I just put a hard number everybody could understand. Said to drop below $6 billion, we're cutting off the transportation. $6 billion is a lot of money sitting in a silo. By the time we got to the House, when they voted for it and sent it back, they said, that sounds like a big number now, but it'll get smaller with time. So we think it should be 1/3 of the cap. So if the cap's $12 billion, that'd be 4. Well, the new cap's 15, so it would be 5. I thought 1/3. I like a rolling number that moves with inflation. So we all supported that. It just didn't quite pass that way because we had 3 special sessions. It died behind the filibuster and things like that. The Wendy Davis filibuster. But by the time we got to the 3rd special, we had really studied this and had a lot of debate. So we said, here's what we're going to do. About 90 days before each session, we have a special committee of House members and Senate members appointed by the Speaker and Lieutenant Governor that have transportation and finance. I happen to be on that, so I like the choices they made this year.
Like I said, my parent was a banker.
But there are about 10 of us will get together, and it's a special appointed committee, and we're going to say this, after studying all these things, we're going to pick a number, say this is sufficient balance. We're in that mode right now. And I'm going to be recommending it either be 5 or 6. My recommendation is 6, or a number right now. But we haven't had our first meeting. And then it'll go, when we start in the session, if the members agree, that's fine, they agree. If they disagree, then any member has the authority to file a resolution and say, I think it ought to be 10. And if they can get the votes to pass it as 10, then it's 10. If they can't get the votes, then it's whatever that is. So there's an opportunity every session to have this discussion of what is a sufficient balance, to make people aware there's money in the silo. Because one of our concerns is, I like money in a safety rainy day fund, but when you just keep taxing people and putting money in a box, that's not being conservative either. You either need to come out here and cut the tax. I have been saying we need to cut the margins tax for the businesses in our state. That's what I've been fighting for every session as well. We need to do that rather than just stacking it up. I want a sufficient balance or fund a core function of the state, like transportation. Anyway.